Welcome to Storytime&Crafts with me, Karasu. Today we are going to be going through chapters 6 and 7 from Trials of Apollo, the Hidden Oracle. I am working on Storytime from Diamond Art Club. It's a round diamond painting. I've at this point found that rounds are more suited to what I was wanting to diamond paint with. A small recap on some of the things going on in the book at this point. Apollo and Meg have made it to Percy's house, and Percy's volunteered to take them out to Camp Half-Blood. So without further ado, let's get into chapters 6, 7, and 8.
Chapter 6. Aquaman driving? Couldn't possibly be worse. Oh wait, now it is. Much to my disappointment, the Jacksons did not have a spare bow or quiver to lend me. I suck at archery, Percy explained. Yes, but I don't, I said. This is why you should always plan for my needs. Sally lent Meg and me some proper winter fleece jackets, however. Mine was blue with the words Luft's written inside the neckline. Perhaps that was an ancient word against evil spirits. A kid would have known. Sorcerer wasn't really my thing. Once we reached the Prius, Meg called shotgun, which was another example of my unfamiliar existence. Gods did not ride in the back. I again suggested following them in a Lamborghini, but Percy admitted he had neither. The Prius was the only car his family owned. Wow. Just wow. Sitting in the back seat, I quickly became carsick. I was used to driving my sun chariot across the sky, where every lane was the fast lane. I was not used to the Long Island Expressway. Believe me, even in the middle of January, there is nothing express about your expressway. Percy braked and lurched forward. I sorely wished I could launch a fireball in front of us and melt cars to make way for our clearly more important journey. Doesn't your Prius have flamethrowers? I demanded. Lasers? At least some Hephaestus bumper blades. What sort of cheap economic vehicle is this? Percy glanced in the rearview mirror. You have rides like that on Mount Olympus? We don't have traffic jams, I said. That I can promise you. Meg tugged at her chrysalis moon ring. Again, I wondered if she had some connection to Artemis. The moon was my sister's symbol. Perhaps Artemis had sent Meg to look after me. Yet that didn't seem right. Artemis had troubles sharing anything with me. Demigods, arrows, nations, birthday presents. It's a twin thing. Also, Meg McAfee did not strike me as one of my sister's followers. Meg had another sort of aura, one I would have been able to recognize easily if I had been a god. But no, I had to rely on mortal intuition, which was like trying to pick up sewing needles while wearing oven mitts. Meg turned and gazed out the rear windshield, probably checking for any more bubbles pursuing us. At least we're not being... Don't say it, Percy warned. Meg huffed. You don't know what I was going to... You were going to say, at least we're not being followed, Percy said. That'll jinx us. Immediately we notice that we are being followed, then we'll end up in a big fight that totals my family car and probably destroys the whole freeway. Then we'll have to run all the way to camp. Meg's eyes widened. You can tell the future? Don't need to, Percy. Change lanes to one that was crawling slightly less slowly. I've just done this a lot. Besides, he shot me a accusing look. Nobody can tell the future anymore. The oracle isn't working. What oracle? Meg asked. Neither of us answered. For a moment I was too stunned to speak, and believe me, I have to be very stunned for that to happen. It still isn't working, I said in a small voice. You didn't know? Percy asked. I mean, sure, we've been out of it for 6 months, but this happened on your watch. That was in jest. I had been busy hiding from Zeus's wrath at the time, which was perfectly legitimate excuse. How was I to know that Gaia would take advantage of the chaos of war and raise my oldest, greatest enemy from the depths of Tartarus so he could take possession of his old lair on the cave of Delphi and cut off the source of my prolific power? Oh, yes, I hear your cries out there. You're the god of prophecy, Apollo. How could you not know what would happen? The next sound you hear will be me blowing you a giant Meg McAfee squirrel raspberry. I swallowed back the tears of fear and 7-layer dip. I just, I assumed, I thought this would be taken care of by now. You mean by demigods? Percy said, going on a big quest to reclaim the Oracle of Delphi? Exactly. I knew Percy would understand. I suppose Charon just forgot. I'll remind him when we are at camp, and he can dispatch one of you talented fellows, heroes. Well, there's the thing, Percy said. To go on a quest, you need a prophecy, right? Those are the rules. If there's no oracle, there are no prophecies. So we're stuck in a catch 88? I sighed. Meg threw a piece of lint at me. A catch 22. No, I explained patiently. This is a catch 88, which is 4 times as bad. I felt as if I was floating on a warm bath and someone had pulled out the stopper, the water swirling around me, tugging me downward. Soon I would be left shivering and exposed, or even I would have sucked down the drain into the sewers of hopelessness. Don't laugh. That's a properly fine metaphor. Also, when you're a god, you get sucked down a drain rather quite easily. If you're caught off guard and relaxed, you happen to change forms at the wrong moment. Once I woke up in a sewer treatment facility in Belize, but that's another story. I was beginning to see what is in store for me during my mortal sanguine. The oracle was held by hostile forces. My advisory lay coiled and waiting, growing stronger every day on the magical fume of Delphi's cave. I was a weak mortal bound to an untrained demigod who threw garbage and chewed her nails. No, Zeus could not possibly expect me to fix this, not in my present condition. And yet someone had sent thugs to interrupt me in the alley. Someone had known where I would land. Nobody could tell the future anymore, Percy had said, but that wasn't quite true. Yeah, you too. Meg hit us both with pieces of lint. Where was she finding this lint? I realized I had been ignoring her. I had felt good while it lasted. Yes, sorry, Meg, I said. You see, the Oracle of Delphi is an ancient... I don't care about that, she said. There are 3 shiny baubles now. What? Percy asked. She pointed behind us. Look! Weaving through the traffic, closing in on us rapidly, there were 3 glittery, vaguely humanoid apparitions, like bellowing plumes of smoke, gendering toward, or touched by King Midas. Just once I'd like an easy commute, Percy grumbled. Everybody hold on. We're going cross-country. Percy's definition of cross-country was different than mine. I envisioned crossing an actual countryside. Instead, Percy shot off the nearest exit ramp, weaved across the parking lot of a shopping mall, then blasted through a drive-thru of a Mexican restaurant without even ordering anything. We swerved into industrial area of warehouses, the smoky apparitions still close behind us. My knuckles turned white on the seat belt's shoulder strap. Is your plan to avoid a fight by dying in a traffic accident? I demanded. Percy yanked on the wheel to the right. We sped north, the warehouses giving way to a hodgepodge of apartment buildings and abandoned strip malls. I'm getting us to the beach. I fight better near water. Because Poseidon? Meg asked, steadying herself against the door handle. Yep, Percy agreed. That's pretty much describes my entire life. Because of Poseidon. Meg bounced up and down with excitement, which seemed pointless to me since we were already bouncing quite a lot. You're going to be like Aquaman? She asked. Get the fishes to fight for you? Thanks, Percy said. I haven't heard enough Aquaman jokes for one lifetime. I wasn't joking, Meg protested. I glanced out the rear window. The 3 glittering plums were still gaining. One of them passed through a middle-aged man crossing the street. The mortal pedestrian immediately collapsed. I know what these spirits, I cried. They are... My brain clouded over. What? Percy demanded. What are they? I've forgotten. I hate being mortal. 4,000 years of knowledge, of secrets of the universe, a sea of wisdom, lost, because I can't contain it all in this teacup of a head. Hold on. Percy flew through a railroad crossing and the Prius went airborne. Meg yelped as her head hit the ceiling. Then she began giggling uncontrollably. The landscape opened into an actual countryside, flowing fields, dormant vineyards, orchards of bearing fruit trees. Just another mile or so to the beach, Percy said. Plus, we're almost to the western edge of camp. We can do it. We can do it. Actually, we couldn't. One of the shiny smoke clouds pulled a dirty trick, plummeting through the pavement directly in front of us. Instinctively, Percy swerved. The Prius went off the road straight through a barbed wire fence and into an orchard. Percy managed to avoid hitting many of the trees, but the car skidded in the ice mud and wedged itself between 2 trunks. Miraculously, the airbags did not deploy. Percy popped his seat belts. You guys okay? Meg shoved against the passenger side door. Won't open. Get me out of here. Percy tried to his own door. It was firmly jammed against the side of a peach tree. Back here, I said. Climb over. I kicked my door open and struggled out, my legs feeling like worn shock absorbers. The 3 smoky figures had stopped at the edge of the orchard. Now they advanced slowly, taking on solid shape. They grew arms and legs, their faces formed eyes and wide, hungry mouths. I knew instantly that I had dealt with these spirits before. I could not remember what they were, but I had dispelled them many times, swatting them into oblivion with no more effort than swatting a gnat. Unfortunately, I wasn't a god now. I was a panicking 17-year-old. My palms sweated, my teeth chattering. My only cognitive thought was, Yeeks! Percy and Meg struggled to get out of the Prius. They needed time, which meant I had to run interference. Stop, I bellowed at the spirits. I am the god Apollo. To my pleasant surprise, the 3 spirits stopped. They hovered in place about 40 feet away. I heard Meg grunt as she tumbled out of the back seat, Percy scrambling after her. I advanced towards the spirits, the frosty mud crunching under my shoes. My breath steamed in the cold air. I raised a hand in an ancient 3-fingered gesture that warded against evil. Leave us and be gone, I told the spirits. The smoke shapes trembled. My hopes lifted. I waited for them to disappear or flee in terror. Instead, they solidified into ghoulish corpses with yellow eyes. Their clothes were in tattered rags, their limbs covered with ghastly wounds and running shoes. Oh dear, my Adam's apple dropped into my chest with like a bowling ball. I remember now. Percy and Meg stepped to either side of me. With a metallic shink, Percy's pen grew into a blade of glowing celestial bronze. Remember what? He asked. How do we kill these things? No, I said. I remember what they are. No plague spirits. Also, they can't be killed.
Chapter 7. No See? Percy planted his feet in a fighting stance. You know, I keep thinking, I have now killed every single thing in Greek mythology, but the list never seems to end. You haven't killed me yet, I noted. Don't tempt me. The three Norseys shuffled forward. Their carnivorous mouths gaped, their tongues lolled, their eyes glistened with the film of yellow mucus. These creatures are not myths, I said. Of course, most of those things in old myths are not myths, except for the story about how I flayed the satyr alive. That was a total lie. Percy glanced at me. You did what? Guys, Meg picked up an old tree branch. Can we talk about this later? The Middle Plague spirit spoke. Apollo. His voice gritted like a seal was breached. We have come to... Let me stop you right there. I crossed my arms and feinted ignorant indifference. Difficult for me, but I managed. You've come to take your revenge on me, eh? I looked at my demigod friends. You see, Northies are the spirits of disease. Once I was born, spreading illness became part of my job. I used plague arrows to stake down naughty populations with smallpox, athlete's foot, that sort of thing. O's, Meg said. Somebody's got to do it, I said. Better a god regulated by the Council of Olympus and with the proper health permits had a horde of uncontrolled spirits like these. The spirits on the left gritted. We've tried to have a moment here. Stop interrupting. You wish to be free. We wish to be free, uncontrolled. Yes, I know. You'll destroy me, then you'll spread every known malady across the world. You've been waiting to do that ever since Pandora let you out of that jar. But you can't. I will strike you down. Perhaps you were wondering how I could act so confident and calm. In fact, I was terrified. My 16-year-old mortal instincts screamed, run. My knees were knocking together. My eye had developed a nasty twitch. But the secret to dealing with plague spirits was to keep talking so as to appear in charge and unafraid. I trusted that this would allow my demigod companions time to come up with a clever plan to save me. I certainly hoped Meg and Percy were working on such a plan. The spirit on the right bared its rotten teeth. What will you strike us down with? Where's your bow? That appears to be missing, I agreed. But it is really... What if it's cleverly hidden under that Led Zeppelin t-shirt, and I am about to whip it out and shoot you all? The Nazi shifted nervously. You lie. The one in the middle said. Percy cleared his throat. Hey, Apollo? Finally, I thought. I know what you're going to say, I told him. You and Meg have come up with a clever plan to hold off these spirits while I run away to camp. I hate to see you sacrifice yourselves, but... That's not what I was going to say. Percy raised his blade. I was going to ask what happens if I just slice and dice those breathers with celestial bronze. The middle spirit chortled, his yellow eyes gleaming. A sword is such a small weapon. It does not have the property of a good epidemic. Stop right there, I said. You cannot claim both my plagues and my poetry. You are right, said the spirit. Enough words. The three corpses stumbled forward. I thrust out my arm, hoping to blast them to dust. Nothing happened. This is insufferable, I complained. How do demigods do it without auto-wind powers? Meg jabbed the tree branch into the nearest spirit's chest. The branch stuck. Glittering smoke began swirling down the length of the wood. Let go, I warned. Don't let the Nazis touch you. Meg released the branch and scampered away. Meanwhile, Percy charged into battle. He swung his sword, dodging the spirit's attempt to snare him, but his efforts were in vain. Whenever his blade connected with a Nazi, their bodies simply dissolved into glittering mist, then resolidified. A spirit lunged to grab him. From the ground, Meg scooped up a frozen black peach and threw it with such force it embedded itself in the spirit's forehead, knocking him down. We gotta run, Meg declared. Yep, Percy backtracked towards us. I like that idea. I knew running wouldn't help. If it were possible to run from diseased spirits, the medieval Europeans would have put on their track shoes and escaped the Black Death. And FYI, the Black Death was not my fault. I took 1 century off to lie around the beaches of Cabo and came back and found that the Nazi had gotten loose and a third of the continent was dead. Gods, I was so irritated, but I was too terrified to argue. Meg and Percy sprinted off through the orchard and I followed. Percy pointed to a line of mountains about a mile away. That's the western border of camp, if we can just get there. We passed an irrigation tank on a tractor trailer. With a casual flick of his hand, Percy caused the side of the tank to erupt. The wall of water crashed into the 3 Nazi behind us. That was good, Meg grinned, skipping along in her new green dress. We're going to make it. No, I thought, we're not. My chest ached. Each breath was a ragged wheeze. I realized that these 2 demigods could carry on a conversation while running for their lives, while I, the immortal Apollo, was reduced to gasping like a catfish. We can't, I gasped. They'll just... Before I could finish, the 3 glittering pillars of smoke bloomed from the ground in front of us. 2 of the Nazis resolidified into cadavers, one with a peach for a third eye. The other was with a tree branch stuck out of his chest. The third spirit, well, Percy didn't see it in time. He ran straight into the plume of smoke. Don't breathe, I warned him. Percy's eyes bulged out as if to say, seriously? He fell to his knees, clawing at his throat. As a son of Poseidon, he could probably breathe underwater, but holding one's breath from an undetermined amount of time was a difficult matter altogether. Meg picked up another withered peach from the field, but it would offer her little defense against the forces of darkness. I tried to figure out how to help Percy, because I am all about helping, but the branch-impaled Nazi charged at me. I turned and fled, running face first into a tree. I like to tell you that was part of my plan, but even I, with all my poetic skills, cannot put a positive spin on it. I found myself flat on my back, spots dancing in my eyes. The used to kill the great Apollo, the spirit grunted. Anthrax? Perhaps Ebola? Hangnails, I suggested, trying to squirm away from my tormentor. I live in fear of hangnails. I have the answer, the spirit cried, readily ignoring me. Let's try this. He dissolved into smoke and settled over me like a glittering blanket. Chapter 8. Peaches in combat. I am hanging it up now. My brain exploded. I will not say my life passed before my eyes. I wish it had. That would have taken several months, giving me time to figure out an escape plan. Instead, my regrets passed before my eyes. Despite being the glorious, perfect being, I do have a few regrets. I remember the day at Abbey Road Studios when my envy led me to set Rancer in the hearts of John and Paul and break up the Beatles. I remember Archelaus falling on the plains of Troy, cut down by an unworthy archer because of my wrath. I saw Heracles, a bronze-shouldered and dark ringlets gleaming in the sunlight, standing on the sideline of a distant field. He gave me a brilliant smile. Even you cannot throw that far, he teased. Watch me, I said. I threw the discus, then stared in horror as a gust of wind made it veer unexpectedly towards Heracles's handsome face. And, of course, I saw her, the other love of my life, her fair skin transferred into bark. Her hair sprouted green leaves, her eyes hardened into veins of sap. Those memories brought back so much pain. You might think I would welcome the glittering plague mist descending over me. Yet my new mortal self rebelled. I was too young to die. I hadn't even had my first kiss. Yes, my godly catalogue of exes was filled with more beautiful women than the Kardashians' guest lists, but none of them seemed real to me. If I'm being totally honest, I had to confess something else. All gods fear death, even when we are not encased in mortal form. That may seem silly, we are immortal, but as you've seen, immortality can be taken away. In my case, 3 stinking times. Gods know about fading. They know about being forgotten over the centuries. The idea of ceasing to exist altogether terrifies us. In fact, well, Zeus would not like me sharing this information, and if you tell anybody, I will deny I ever said it. But the truth is, we gods are a little in awe of you mortals. You spend your whole lives knowing you will die. No matter how many friends or relatives you have, your puny existence will quickly be forgotten. However do you cope with it? Why are you not running around constantly screaming and pulling your hair out? Your bravery, I must admit, is quite admirable. Now where was I? Right, I was dying. I rolled around in the mud, holding my breath. I tried to brush off the disease cloud, but it was not as easy as swatting a fly or an uppity mortal. I caught a glimpse of Meg playing a deadly game of tag with the third No See, trying to keep the peach tree between herself and the spirit. She yelled something at me, but her voice seemed tiny and far away. Somewhere to my left the ground shook. A miniature geyser erupted from the field. Percy crawled towards it desperately. He thrust his face in the water, washing away the smoke. My eyes began to dim. Percy struggled to his feet. He ripped out the source of the geyser, an irrigation pipe, and turned it on me. Normally I did not like being doused. Every time I go camping with Artemis, she likes to wake me up with a bucket of ice water. But in this case, I didn't mind. The water dispelled the smoke, allowing me to roll away and gasp for air. Nearby, our 2 ghastly enemies reformed as dripping wet corpses, their yellow eyes glowing with annoyance. Meg yelled again. This time I understood her words. Get down! I found this inconsiderate since I'd only just gotten up. All around the orchard, the frozen black remains of the harvest were beginning to levitate. Believe me, in 4,000 years I have seen some strange things. I have seen the dreaming face of Uranus, etched in the stars across the heavens, and the full fury of Tephamt as he raged across the earth. I've seen men turn into snakes, ants turned into men, and other rational people dance the Macarena, but never before had I seen an uprising of frozen fruit. Percy and I hit the ground as peaches shot around the orchard, ricocheting off trees like 8 balls, ripping through the Nausee's cadaverous bodies. If I had been standing up, I would have been killed, but Meg simply stood there, unfazed and unhurt. A dozen dead fruit zipped around her. All 3 Nausees collapsed, riddled with holes. Every piece of fruit dropped to the ground. Percy looked up, his eyes red and puffy. "What just happened?" He sounded congested, which meant he hadn't completely escaped the effects of the plague cloud. At least he hadn't died. That was generally a good sign. "I don't know," I admitted. "Meg, is it safe?" She was staring in amazement at the carnage of fruit, mangled corpses, and broken tree limbs. "I'm not sure. How'd you do that?" Percy sniffed. Meg looked horrified. "I didn't. I just knew it would happen." One of the cadavers began to stir. It got up wobbly on its heavily perforated legs. "But you did do it," the spirit growled. "You are strong, child." The other 2 corpses rose. "Not strong enough," the second Nossi said. "We will finish you now." The third spirit bared the rotten teeth. "Your guardian would be so disappointed." Guardian? Perhaps the spirit meant me. Then, when in doubt, I usually assume the conversation is about me. Meg looked as if she had been punched in the gut. Her face paled, her arms trembled. She stomped her foot and yelled, "No!" More peaches swirled into the air. This time the fruit blurred together in a fierce dust devil, until standing in front of Meg was a creature like a pudgy human toddler, wearing only a linen diaper. Protruding from his back were wings made of leafy branches. His baby face must have been cute except for the glowing green eyes and pointed fangs. The creature snarled and snapped at the air. "Oh no," Percy shook his head. "I hate those things." The 3 Nossi also did not look pleased. They edged away from the snarling baby. What is it?" Meg asked. I stared at her in disbelief. She had been the cause of the fruit-based strangeness, but she looked as shocked as we were. Unfortunately, if Meg didn't know how she had summoned this creature, she would not know how to make it go away. And like Percy Jackson, I was no fan of Carpy. "That's a giant spirit," I said, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. "I've never seen a peach carpos before, but if it's as vicious as other types—" I was about to say "we're doomed," but that seemed both obvious and depressing. The peach baby turned toward the Nasi. For a moment I feared he would make some hellish announcement, an axe of evil between illness and fruit. The middle corpse, the one with the peach in his forehead, inched backward. "Do not interfere," it warned the Carpos. "We will not allow—" The peach baby launched himself at the Nossi and bit its head off. That is not a figure of speech. The Carpy's fanged mouth unhinged, exposing an unbelievable circumference, then closed around the cadaver's head and chomped it off in one bite. Oh dear. I hope you weren't eating dinner as you read that. In a matter of seconds, the Nossi had been torn to shreds and devoured. Trotted and sprung. He landed on the second corpse and proceeded to rip it into plague-flavored cream of wheat. The last spirit dissolved into glittery smoke and tried to fly away, but the peach baby sprung its leafy wings and launched itself in pursuit. It opened its mouth and inhaled the sickness, snapping and swallowing
until every wisp of smoke was gone. He landed in front of Meg and belched. His green eyes gleamed. He did not appear even slightly sick, which I suppose wasn't surprising, since human diseases didn't infect tree spirits. Instead, even after eating 3 whole nasi, the little fellow looked hungry. He howled and beat his small chest. Peaches! Slowly, Percy raised his sword. His nose was still red and running, and his face was puffy. Meg, don't move, he sniffed. I'm gonna... No, she said, don't hurt him. She put her hand tentatively on the creature's curly head. You saved us, she told the Carpos. Thank you. I started mentally preparing a list of herb remedies for regenerating severed limbs, but to my surprise, Peach Baby did not bite off Meg's hand. Instead, he hugged Meg's leg and glared at us as if daring us to approach. Peaches, he growled. He likes you, Percy noted. Why? I don't know, Meg said. Honestly, I didn't summon him. I was certain Meg had summoned him intentionally or unintentionally. I also had some idea now about her godly parentage and some questions about this guardian that the spirit had mentioned, but I decided it was better to interrogate her when she did not have a snarling, carnivorous toddler wrapped around her leg. Well, whatever the case, I said, we owe that Corpus our lives. This brings to mind an experience I coined ages ago. A peach a day keeps the plague spirits away. Percy sneezed. I thought it was apples and doctors. The Carpos hissed. Or peaches, Percy said. Peaches work too. Peaches, agreed the Carpos. Percy wiped his nose. Not criticizing, but why is he grooting? Meg frowned. Grooting? Yeah, like that character in the movie, only saying one thing over and over. I'm afraid I haven't seen that movie, I said. But this Carpos does seem to have a very targeted vocabulary. Perhaps Peaches is his name. Meg stroked the Carpos' curly brown hair, which elected a demonic purr from the creature's throat. That's what I'll call him. Oh, you are not adopting that. Percy sneezed with such force another irrigation pipe exploded behind him, sending up a roar of tiny geysers. Sick. You're lucky, I said. Your trick with the water diluted the spirit's power. Instead of getting a deadly disease, you got a head cold. I hate head colds. Meg shook her head. I have an excellent constitution, I said. No doubt that's what saved me. And the fact that I hosed the smoke off of you, Percy said. Well, yes. Percy stared at me as if waiting for something. After an awkward moment, it occurred to me that if he was a god, I was a worshipper. He might expect gratitude. Thank you? I said. He nodded. No problem. I relaxed a little. If he had demanded a sacrifice, like a white bull or a fattened calf, I'd not be sure what I'd done. Can we go now? Meg asked. An excellent idea, I said, though I'm afraid Percy is in no condition. I can drive you the rest of the way, he said, if you can get my car out from between those trees. He glanced in the direction, and his expression turned even more miserable. Ah, Hades, no. A police cruiser was pulling over on the side of the road. I imagined the officer's eyes tracing the tire ruts in the mud, which led to the plowed-down fence and continued to the blue Toyota Prius wedged between two peach trees. The cruiser's roof lights flashed on. Great, Percy muttered. If they tow the Prius, I'm dead. My mom and Paul need that car. Go talk to the officers, I said. You won't be any use to us anyways in your current state. Yeah, you'll be fine, Meg said. You said the camp is right over those hills? Right, but Percy scowled, probably trying to think straight through the effects of his cold. Most people enter camp from the east, where Half-Blood Hill is. The western border is wild. Hills and woods, all heavily enchanted. If you're not careful, you could get lost. He sneezed again. I'm still not even sure Apollo can get in if he's mortal. I'll get in. I tried to exude confidence. I had no alternative. If I was unable to enter Camp Half-Blood, no. I'd already been attacked twice in my first day as a mortal. There was no plan B that would keep me alive. The police car's door opened. Go, I urged Percy. We'll find our way through the woods. You explain to the police that you're sick and you lost control of your car. They'll go easy on you. Percy laughed. Yeah, cops love me almost as much as teachers do. He glanced at Meg. You're sure you're okay with the baby fruit demon? Peaches growled. All good, Meg promised. Go home, rest, and get lots of fluids. Percy's mouth twitched. You're telling the son of Poseidon to get lots of fluids. Okay, just try to survive until the weekend, will you? I'll come to camp and check on you guys if I can. Be careful and... Hachoo! He touched the cap of his pen to his sword, turning it back into a simple ballpoint. A wise precaution before approaching law enforcement. He trudged down the hill, sneezing and sniffling. Officers, he called. Sorry, I'm up here. Can you tell me where Manhattan is? Meg turned to me. Ready? I was soaking wet and shivering. I was having the worst day in history of days. I was stuck with a scary girl and an even scarier peach baby. I was but no means ready for anything, but as desperately wanting to reach camp. I might find some friendly faces there, perhaps even jovial worshippers who would bring me peeled grapes, Oreos, and other holy offerings. Sure, I said. Let's go. Peaches, the Carpos, grunted. He gestured for us to follow, then scampered towards the hills. Perhaps he knew the way. Perhaps he just wanted to lead us to a grisly death. Meg skipped after him, swinging from the tree branches and cartwheeling through the mud as the mood took her. You must have thought we'd just finished a nice picnic rather than battle with plague-ridden cadavers. I turned my head to the sky. Are you sure, Zeus? It's not too late to tell me that this was an elaborate prank and recall me to Olympus. I've learned my lesson, I promise. The gray winter clouds did not respond. With a sigh, I jogged after Meg and her homunculus new minion.
Those chapters were fun to read. I wonder how well Percy's going to do trying to get back home, and what is in store for Meg and Apollo. Well, we'll find out next time. Thank you once again for joining me. If you are curious on what I used or anything, the information will be down in the description box. If you like what you hear, please hit a like button and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next couple chapters. Bye.